Welcome back to the Deep Drive. This is episode 13. I'm your co-host, Ahan Rungta, here with my boy, as always, Max Goldstein. The Tigers have just been eliminated. This and a lot more on today's show. We're going to talk about managerial decisions because I feel like it has been quite the week in postseason baseball in terms of second-guessing decisions, mostly because of how things have actually turned out. But we're here to address as many of them as we can find. And at the end of the show, we'll do a starting pitcher draft. So we got a stacked agenda today for our October 14th edition. So anything that gets said here, it was said on October 14th. So we've now seen 2 games of the ALCS and 1 game of the National League Championship Series. So, if we say something that, later looks weird, so just keep in mind that's where we are at right now. We got to open with, my co-host is a Tigers fan. So, Max, take the floor. Any final words for your Tigers?
I mean, I realized after the Tigers got eliminated that last year they actually got eliminated in the same spot, a road game 5 of a division series. So, but the truth is the Tigers were not, like this year's team was not a World Series caliber team, or maybe even not a league championship caliber team. And I really was confident. Like, I was bummed that the Tigers lost as a Tigers fan, but the better team in Seattle, they won the series. And if the Tigers had won Game 5, which they almost did, like my feeling was, well, then we'll probably lose to Toronto. And if somehow the Tigers beat Toronto, then it was, well, we'll surely lose to the Phillies, or not the Phillies, but probably the Dodgers. So, like, I felt like if the Tigers won, they were eventually going to disappoint me because outside of Skubal, the team really didn't have, I don't know, if any strengths, quite honestly. So, but that was a pretty crazy game, but I was not surprised that the Tigers lost.
It's one of those games where it's like 10 years down the line, I'll be telling, uh, my kids or whatnot, or people who were not with me in this moment, people who are not in my life right now, that I stayed up to watch that game. And as a neutral fan, right? Like, as someone who had obviously a rooting interest in the Mariners for monetary purposes, but as a neutral fan of someone who's not a fan of either team, the fact that I stayed up to watch basically every pitch of that game, and I say basically, but I watched every single pitch of that game. Like, it was much more of a classic game than the box score will show, because like you'll look back at this game and you're like, nothing really stands out other than the fact that it went 15 innings, but like just the tension in that game, the up and down nature of it, the fact that there were moments where you thought the Tigers had this game under control, and there were moments where you thought the Mariners had this game under control, and the fact that there were so many runners left on base throughout the game, really, and especially after the starting pitchers exited. I have thought that the Mariners and the Tigers were the 2 best teams in the American League the entire season. I spent the first half of the season saying the Tigers were the best team. They started struggling. They started getting hurt. They lost Reese Olson and a few others. And I was like, okay, I guess the Mariners are the best team. I feel like, in a way that you are going to say in a few minutes, that you're not changing your takes very crazily about how you felt about the American League. I am also not changing my takes about the Tigers and the Mariners gave us a great series because they were the 2 best teams in the American League the whole time. And there's no way to verify a take like this, right? It's not like you can play this season the way every roster turned out. You can play this season multiple times to find out if I was right or not. We're never going to know, but I'm going to stand by my take that the Game 5 we just witnessed is a true testament, and we got a good series between the 2 best teams in the American League. And the number 1 team ended up beating the number 2 team. And that's how I feel. I felt the entire American League East was fraudulent the entire season. I've claimed that there wasn't a single good team in the American League East the entire season. The Mariners, because of the marathon that they had to go through in Game 5, they actually opened the American League Championship Series as slight underdogs to win the series against the Blue Jays. If you are a member of our Discord, which, by the way, you can get all our betting content and fancy football guides and all that stuff for just under $1 per day. If you're a member of our Discord, you know why I've been invested in the Mariners. We are rooting for a pennant future. It's my only pennant future of the whole season was the Mariners. I did not hedge this, and I'm still not hedging this with them up 2-0. I think it's mathematically the wrong thing to do to bet the Blue Jays at any point in this series because I do feel the Mariners are just so much better. I think it's a good transition to talk a little bit about the Yankees. And I said this last week, right? Like, I see the argument for the Yankees being the best team in the American League East, and I even see the argument for you calling them a true contender. And I get that. I get where you're coming from. But I view this team as certainly at least a full tier under the Tigers and the Mariners. And perhaps you're still not going to agree with that, which is fine. But I feel like I joke with you about like how you can call at this point you can call yourself a Yankees fan the way you hype them up so much. So I'm giving the floor right back to you as the honorary Yankees fan for the season, at least relative to the scheme of the podcast. Do you have any final words for how that series turned out against the Blue Jays?
I mean, just you would agree with this that like one series, it's not enough to say, well, like I thought the Yankees were going to win that series. The fact that they didn't, that doesn't mean I was wrong to pick the Yankees. If I knew the Blue Jays were going to win the series, I would have picked the Blue Jays. I know they got outplayed. Like some of the games weren't even close, but one series, like that was, no matter how the series went, that would never be enough for me to change my stance. And the other thing, like I wanted the Yankees to win just because that would make me look better. Like that would be an evidence in favor of the Yankees being the right pick. Like I get that the fact that the Blue Jays won the series 3-1, like it makes it seem like, yeah, maybe the Blue Jays won the NL or the AL East because they're better than the Yankees. But I still feel like the Yankees might have been the strongest team in the American League. I know that they're out, but like they had the best run differential in the American League. I felt like they had the best offense. I get that they're out, but we both understand that like winning the World Series, making it to the American League Championship Series, like that's not an easy thing. We both picked the Phillies to win the World Series. And we both knew that like there was a good chance that we were going to be wrong, and we were wrong. But like usually you're going to be wrong about your World Series picks.
Peter, I'm going to stay on after our show to talk about Dodgers Brewers, and I'm probably going to have props there. My full betting card is in the Ball Institute Discord. But I will stay on after our show to talk about this Dodgers Brewers game tonight. Probably find a player prop, at least one I have in mind. Yeah, I mean, I completely agree that just because just because you don't pick the right pennant. I mean, again, I said this in the past. Like the probability that your team to win the pennant wins the pennant is higher than the probability that they don't. Like no one has an over 50% chance of winning the pennant. It just the chalkiest team will still more likely miss the World Series than make the World Series, right? When you're picking pennants. So I get it. There's no route to convincing. I mean, I've said what I wanted to say about the Yankees basically every single episode. The same way I've talked about the Red Sox and how I talked about like the Blue Jays pitching, which I've been anti-Blue Jays pitching the entire season. Maybe I didn't give enough credit to them. I actually thought the Yankees had a decent shot against the Blue Jays, so maybe I didn't give the Blue Jays pitching enough credit. I did not think Trey Savage was going to have 11 strikeouts in a start against the Yankees in no-hit ball for over 5 innings. Again, like I said about Cam Schlittler in the elimination game, like that's not the mean outcome. What Schlittler did in Game 3 against the Red Sox, I don't think what Savage did against the Yankees is a mean outcome. But I certainly did not see that coming from Savage at all. I didn't think that was in his range of outcomes. So for that, maybe I underrated the Blue Jays pitching staff a little bit. But I think they're now showing me the floor with these first two games against the Mariners. They're showing the floor that I very much anticipated for them. The fact that once you get past Kevin Gausman, the Blue Jays pen is very, very suspect. They don't have the depth in starting pitching that a team like the Phillies, the Dodgers do to make up for that, right? And the reason the Dodgers are here up 1-0 against the Brewers in the National League Championship Series is because despite their really, really troubled bullpen, who cares when Blake Snell is giving you 8 innings of pretty much perfect ball? Who cares when you have Yamamoto, who's going to start game 2, and you also have Roki Sasaki, who can just become a closer. Now, we're going to talk a little bit more about Sasaki in game 1 and the Dodgers pen, but Sasaki just randomly became a closer, and they feel pretty good about it for the most part, despite the fact that they've had bullpen troubles the entire season. And then you have just Tyler Glasnow out of nowhere. Remember him. Remember how he could be the ace on almost any pitching staff, and Glasnow is not even the Dodgers' best starter. It's probably a good transition to talk about the Phillies because we both picked them to win the pennant. But like you said, we knew that getting eliminated first round against the Dodgers was also a non-negligibly probable outcome. In fact, the Phillies were underdogs against the Dodgers in the first round despite having the bye, and they promptly lost. And I think I will use the card that you just passed along to me, which is just because the Phillies lost that series, it doesn't mean they lose that series every time if they play 100 times, right? And I will gladly say, yes, I was wrong in thinking that the Dodgers should have not been underdogs. I certainly think after seeing how that series played out, I completely underestimated what the Dodgers can do, as a pitching staff, despite how bad their bullpen is. This is coming from someone who doesn't even value bullpens as much as you do, but I definitely underestimated their pitching staff. Blake Snell, we're going to spend a lot of this episode giving him his flowers, but Tyler Glasnow, I'm an OG Tyler Glasnow fan, and even I didn't think that the Dodgers pitching staff as a whole would dominate what I thought was the best offense in the National League. I thought the Phillies were the best offense in the National League, better than the Dodgers, better than the Cubs, people or teams that did better in the regular season. But I thought the Phillies were the best offense in the American League or in the National League. And the Dodgers pitching staff just made it seem like the Phillies had never been there. So I did not give the Dodgers enough credit for their rotation. And I think we've seen so far, the highs of the Dodgers pitching staff, but even though I think the Dodgers are rightfully the favorite to win the World Series right now, I also think we haven't seen the ugly side of the Dodgers pitching staff, which if they face the Mariners in the World Series, it could get a little interesting. I don't think the Dodgers are going to have as easy of a time against a potential Mariners matchup in the World Series if they get there as they did last year against the Yankees. And I think it's going to be a much better series. But I think it's the right time to start talking about certain things that have happened in the last few days in the playoffs. So this entire week has basically been about controversial manager decisions. And the reason people are talking more about it now is obviously because the results are playing themselves that way, right? And Max, you wrote an article about the George Kirby versus Kerry Carpenter matchup right before Game 5. Is beautiful timing. And funnily enough, people read the article and they were either betting Kerry Carpenter walk or Kerry Carpenter home run, just from the fact that you reminded them that there was matchup history there, which was funny. Both bets hit, but not against George Kirby. So Kerry Carpenter ends up hitting his home run bet against Gabe Spire, and Kerry Carpenter also gets walked twice later in the game, not by George Kirby. So that's hilarious. But it brings up the overarching point about judging decisions based on the process rather than the result. And it's something that the casual media does way too often, which is judging by the result. And something I've noticed way too often is people, in our Discord, people live chatting, stuff like that, or people tweeting, they'll wait for the inning to be over and then they'll claim what their take was. And I hate when anyone does that with my bets. Is like, wait for the game to be over, now everyone's a genius, or wait for the result to happen, now everyone's a genius. But let's spend some time talking about the process stuff versus the actual result. So this is our segment right now. I'm going to name something that was considered controversial as a decision by a manager in this postseason. And Max, you tell me, and I'll tell you whether or not this decision was correct. So let's start with Game 5 of the ALDS. George Kirby exits after 2 times through the order in the ALDS Game 5. It was the 5th inning, right? Am I correct about this? This is the 5th inning?
It was the 6th inning.
It was the 6th inning. It was the 6th inning. George Kirby has Javier Baez, the 9-hitter, lead off and hit a double, which, by the way, could very, very well have been thrown out at second. That would have been funny. But Javier Baez reaches second base, nobody out, and Kerry Carpenter, for the 3rd time through the order, leading off in the lineup, 3rd time through the order, comes up. And at this point, nobody out, runner on second. The Mariners are only up 1. Result aside, which is always how we judge these things, because we judge these things by, if you were to play the situation 1,000 times, which one helps you win the game more often. Result aside, was it the correct move to pull George Kirby?
I believe it was. Obviously, the decision did not work out at all because Kerry Carpenter ended up homering off the pitcher that they were excited to have face Kerry Carpenter. But it was already the 6th inning, and it was going to be the 3rd time that Carpenter would see Kirby. Part of me thinks that if Carpenter didn't have the crazy history against Kirby, that they might have let him face him. And that, I think, is probably wrong, unless they have strong evidence based on their own numbers that that's a nightmare matchup for George Kirby. But I think it was the right move because Kerry Carpenter throughout his career has been very bad against left-handed pitching. So there's a man on second. Even if there wasn't necessarily a man on second, this is going to be the 3rd time through, which, as a pitcher goes through the lineup again and again, the results become more favorable for the hitters. So I felt like once it was the 6th inning, the Tigers were down by, the Mariners were only up by a run. So I felt like with a fresh bullpen that it made sense to go to your lefty to face Kerry Carpenter.
I think I'm going to agree with you for the most part here. I think you're slightly undervaluing the, granted, not a huge sample size history between Kirby and Carpenter. I mean, you wrote an article about this matchup before the game started, and you're absolutely correct in that people generally overvalue history. Maybe there are outliers in that, Devers versus Garrett Cole is the first one that comes to mind to me for obvious reasons. But that is it is a large sample size. I think you're maybe undervaluing the fact that there's mental reactions to people facing each other at the highest level, and there's psychological imbalances that come with a pitcher like George Kirby, who is one of the best in the world. He is he would be the ace on many staffs in this league. But there is a mental side to, I can seemingly get almost anybody out. But this guy has 5 home runs off me in this small sample size. He's 2 for 2 today. Now, granted, one of them should have been an out because Crawford should have caught the ball in the 1st inning. But he also hit a hard hit single against me this next at bat. He almost never whiffs against me. There is a mental side to George Kirby maybe feeling like he can't even get Carpenter out ever because he's focusing so much on the failures against him. And I think when you hear some of these guys talk like Garrett Cole, there's, how the old school people say, you got to have a feel for the game, right? I think this is where feel slightly matters, because if you listen to Garrett Cole every time he faces the Red Sox, before starts, people will like have on-field interviews with him, and he's talking about like, oh God, I have to face Devers. Like maybe I'll just walk him, right? Like this is a guy who's like mentally bogged down by the fact that Rafael Devers is on the other team and he has to throw baseballs in his zip code. So it is possible that George Kirby is mentally bogged down by the Kerry Carpenter matchup because of the recent failures, and that's why we have sports psychologists on teams. That's why we have coaches on teams, right? Like other than just the manager, we have pitching coaches. We have multiple of them. And we have people on a team for a particular reason. And it's something that I bring up in every single context that we're going to talk about today, which is it is more likely that the manager and the coaches on a certain team, it is statistically a good assumption to think that they know more about their guys, like the people in their clubhouse, than we do. Now, whether or not they always do the right thing with that information, that's what we can scrutinize. That's what we're scrutinizing right now. But I certainly think, like, if the Mariners feel like George Kirby is mentally bogged down by the Kerry Carpenter matchup, I think there is some merit to that. So I don't think it's completely irrelevant, the fact that they have this history. But I completely agree with you. This was the correct decision. You have nobody out with a runner on second base, only up one. You play for outs because you're trying to win this game. You want to get out of that inning with at most one run because worst case scenario, he moves the runner over to third or whatever. You're trying to get out of that inning feeling like, okay, even if the game is tied, we're fine. We're not going to give up the 2-run home run, right? And ironically, they get in Gabe Spar. Kerry Carpenter has a 71 WRC plus versus left-handed pitching this season. For reference, like if you were a 71 WRC plus overall hitter, people are talking about you getting DFA'd. Like this, he is really, really bad against left-handed pitching, and that has carried over to this season. If there is absolutely no large sample size, whatnot history between Gabe Spar and Kerry Carpenter, to think that the matchup against Spar could be any worse than Kirby versus Carpenter, this was objectively the right move if you're trying to get that out. There was never a chance that Kirby was just going to walk Kerry Carpenter and have first and second nobody out, which, by the way, another manager recently did, which we'll talk about. So this was correct. In that very game, how about on your side, Max? On your team's side, there was a few other controversial decisions that happened right after this. Tarek Skubal exited the game after 99 pitches in Game 5 in this exact game. Now, I don't think we should just stop at what was it correct to take Tarek Skubal out, because I want your Tigers perspective, your AJ Hinch perspective on that. But also, like, can you walk us through this whole inning and explain, were you surprised with Tarek Skubal exiting? Did you think he would start and have a short leash? And were you anticipating entering Game 5 that Tarek Skubal would be pitching this well, having, setting a winner-take-all record for strikeouts and still not having a leash over 99 pitches?
Well, the leash would never be short with Skubal, first of all, just because we're going to talk about it later, but I mean, he's an incredible pitcher. So unless he's like hurting or like something was so crazy off, they would allow him. Like he gives the Tigers the best chance of winning. Probably let him go through the order 3 times if the pitch count is not so high. I'm shocked if like AJ Hinch told Skubal, you're done. I really think Skubal took himself out of the. I don't know why he would, because I mean he's very competitive and he only had 99 pitches, but I guess maybe he felt he used all of his energy, and maybe that's part of the reason he pitched so well, is that he gave it so much. There's no way that AJ Hinch would tell Skubal that, like, his pitch count, it wasn't like he had thrown 106 pitches. At 99, there's like, I'm almost 100% sure that this was not AJ Hinch saying, Scoob, you're done.
I'm gonna like, so First off, Peter says Scooble's Instagram message felt like he was leaving the Tigers. Any thoughts on where he could end up besides the Dodgers? As an honest Tigers fan, we did a disservice to him, and we should trade him to the Red Sox for an outfielder that can make contact really well, like our GM said this morning, and trade for a guy like Jarren Duran. All jokes aside, do you think Scooble's actually leaving? I don't.
I hope the Tigers extend him, but I mean, he's going to get a massive contract. So, and the Tigers haven't exactly given massive contracts out in a long time. So, I don't know if they're going to keep him, but obviously they'd like to. But I mean, it's going to cost over $300 million to keep him. So, I don't know what's going to happen.
I echo everything that Peter said. Moving on. Yeah, I mean, going back to the Scooble thing. So first off, AJ Hinch said after the game that, or he kind of evaded the question. He didn't give a clear cut, legally binding sort of answer about whether he took Scooble out or not. He did allude to the fact that he took Scooble out and not the other way around, because he did say that Scoob said that he was good to go longer. So he did say that. So I'm going to disagree with you on Scoob taking himself out, because I genuinely think AJ Hinch just is outright telling us that no, that's not what happened. Now, again, it could be AJ Hinch covering for him, because there's always languaging stuff that happens post-game. I don't think we'll ever actually truly find out.
I think we should call AJ Hinch right now.
Oh, yeah, I got his number on speed dial. 1 second. No, I mean, just because I met AJ Hinch doesn't mean I have his phone number. But yeah, I mean, I don't think we'll ever find out a real answer to that question. My perspective of it is this. First off, like, as someone who's rooting for the Mariners, I was just like, watching like the number of foul balls they hit off him. I was very encouraged by the at-bats, the fact that they were making Scooble work, and Scooble had to sort of empty the tank, get to 101 miles an hour, on his fastball, to get through the start of the third time through that order, et cetera, right? And I was happy with how the Mariners fought and made sure that Scooble wasn't going to throw a complete game shutout, so to speak, right? It's like that nailer double on a check swing, a little bit of luck there, that hurts, right? When you're in a game that's going to be determined by a run in the 15th inning, that does hurt. A little bit of luck, you're going to need it if you want to win a World Series. You can't always, rely 100% on skill sometimes, because there's a lot of good teams. But even beyond just that, I think they made Scooble work. They didn't swing at too many junk balls. Whenever Scooble threw a waste pitch, more than likely the Mariners were taking it. So they made Scooble work, like, credit to them. But as someone who was rooting for the Mariners, I was just like, here's the thing, like, now Kerry Carpenter hit this home run, it's 2-1, and now Scooble's going to come back out because, this Tigers pen is, like, not ideal, but, like, Scooble's at 99 pitches, right? He's going to come out and start the inning, and if he gets into trouble, then we can face this Tigers pen. I was thrilled to see Scooble off the mound, and this is something that I said in our Discord before the inning started and all the chaos started ensuing, right? I was on the train of, like, if I was AJ Hinch and I had the power and Scooble gave me the yes, I'm ready, good to go, I would have let him start the inning, just because he was completely mowing. And the fact that my options here start with Kyle Finnegan. Like, can we talk about the fact that, like, Kyle Finnegan is not a good reliever, and this is who you're asking to protect a one-run lead? There's no metric that'll convince me that Kyle Finnegan is a great reliever in this game and will ever be in the near future. Like, that's who he brought in to face the meat of the Mariners order. This is not the bottom of the lineup. This is not 7, 8, 9. This is not J.P. Crawford and company, which, by the way, Mariners have one of the better bottom of the orders. But this is the meat of the order. And he asked Kyle Finnegan instead of Tarek Skubal. Like, to me, from my vantage point, it's like, you have Tarek Skubal, you have Kyle Finnegan, you choose Kyle Finnegan, right? That's how it was from my optics. But even after Kyle Finnegan gets into the game, what I thought was the dagger here is you let him face the 3 batters, and then Josh Naylor comes up as the 4th batter, and you let him face Josh Naylor when you had lefty Tyler Holton waiting in the bullpen. And I thought this actually featured two managerial mistakes here because, first of all, Kyle Finnegan should not have stayed in to face Josh Naylor. Luckily, Naylor didn't hit a home run and is just a single. So you could still get out of that inning even after you gave up that base runner, which you shouldn't have. You should have gotten Holton in to try to get Naylor. Would have been a better matchup for you. And then Dan Wilson on the other side. Nobody's talking about this because that inning worked out for the Mariners, but I will be the one to say I think Dan Wilson made a little bit of a boo-boo here, which he did not pay for, but he knew that if he was going to pinch hit as Tyler Holton comes in the game, right, he is going to pinch hit a left-handed batter to face Kyle Finnegan instead of Tarek Skubal because Mitch Garver was in the game originally as a right-handed bat. He was going to pinch hit a left-handed bat to force AJ Hinch to either you keep Kyle Finnegan in with two runners on base and face a left-handed bat. But obviously, if you're going to pinch hit a lefty, Tyler Holton is warming up. Obviously, Tyler Holton was coming in that game. There was no scenario in which you pinch hit a left-handed bat and Tyler Holton was not coming into that game. Knowing that, Dan Wilson pinch hit Dominic Canzone, who was his best bench bat from the left side. He should have pinch hit Luke Raley because you know for a fact that AJ Hinch is going to do that switch and put in Tyler Holton, and you're going to counter by pinch hitting Leo Rivas. You know this is what's going to happen. Given that, it would have been really bad if later on in the game they needed another left-handed bat and they did not have Dominic Canzone because Dominic Canzone is a much better hitter than Luke Raley. He was north of a 140 WRC plus this season overall. He burned Canzone on a double switch, and Canzone was used in that game just to essentially pump fake and get Leo Rivas in that game. So he should have pinch hit Luke Raley because that pinch hitter was going to get burned anyway. So I think he got away with that. But overall, I think neither manager was perfect in this series. I think AJ Hinch kind of was the one that made two mistakes at once. Whether or not you interpret the Tarek Skubal exit as an L or not, I think it was, but he definitely should not have left Kyle Finnegan in that long, and that cost the Tigers that run, and eventually their season ended because they had to throw Tommy Kahnle out there with their season on the line.
Yeah, I just wanted to say, I would have thought there was no chance they let Finnegan face Naylor, so maybe he wanted to pinch hit Canzone because he really thought after AJ let Finnegan face Naylor who's probably a better left-handed hitter than Canzone or Raley, or at least it's close. I don't know that we can say for sure that AJ would go to the Holton once he gave up the hit to Naylor just because he didn't use the lefty for Naylor.
It was a confusing inning overall for me, but I guess the result went my way, and in this case, it didn't go your way. So I'm not complaining, but I promise you, if this was the Red Sox up there and Alex Cora did something like this where he was really, really messing around, I would be so critical, and I'd hold on to this construct for a little bit longer. But talking about the present, talking about teams who are still playing, more decisions that this one confused both of us. I know that for a fact. John Schneider last year in April of 2024. I want to clarify that this was early last year and not this year before the playoffs. It's a clip that has been posted so many times, and I posted it as well because I like rage baiting. I like rage baiting every once in a while, right? I'll post true rage bait once a month. But I like drawing people's reactions, and I like getting people mad. And I pushed this clip as well. Last year, John Schneider was asked about Cal Raleigh. This was before Cal Raleigh put up his MVP season, but he was starting to break out. It was clear that Cal Raleigh was going to be one of the better hitting catchers on the season. And they asked, how do you pitch Cal Raleigh? He has been tearing up the Blue Jays, right? Every time he had visited Toronto, he was killing Blue Jays pitching. Kind of just really seeing the ball well in Toronto. So they asked, how do you pitch to Cal Raleigh? And his response was, it's not really hard to pitch to him if you execute. The man is hitting 220. Now, I would not clown John Schneider for this a year and a half later in normal circumstances. This man quoted batting average, so he deserves everything he's getting. I will absolutely throw the smoke at him. I think John Schneider is having an overall pretty good season, by the way, and he navigated that pitching staff really well against the Yankees. I'm not here to clown John Schneider's career. I'm here to clown him citing batting average to talk trash about Cal Raleigh, who's now a superstar. If you mention batting average as your defense to trying to talk trash, I will talk trash about you. So that's my beef with John Schneider. But he hits the home run in the first inning, and we can push narratives about like he has something to prove, et cetera, whatever. I'm not going to do that because I'm not the guy to think that Cal Raleigh hit a home run because John Schneider said that a year and a half earlier. I'm not that delusional. But John Schneider, after game one, he was asked, were you considering walking Cal Raleigh, or do you still feel that pitching to him is not that hard? And John Schneider said, every time he comes up to bat, you honestly have to consider intentionally walking him. So A, how the turntables. B, this man intentionally walked Cal Raleigh in the fifth inning in game two with a runner on second and nobody out. I feel like John Schneider was completely in the wrong here as well. You don't intentionally walk someone in a tie game with nobody out in general. And to make matters worse, Julio Rodriguez, he struck out right after this, and then Jorge Polanco hit the home run. But this is not like a lineup where you can be confident that, yeah, Louis Varland versus Julio, Louis Varland versus Jorge Polanco. I really love those matchups, and I'm really banking on a double play or 3 straight strikeouts. Like, there's no justification to giving the Mariners free edge like that. Do you agree with me?
Yeah, and what I was thinking about, like, when you intentionally walk someone, you're giving them first base. Like if they decide to pitch to Cal Raleigh and then he got in like an infield single, and let's just say the runner stayed at second because it was hit towards the second baseman. Like, if you're the Blue Jays, like, you only do the intentional walk if like you're like, yeah, we're better off after that. So like, I think there's no way that as a fan or a manager you'd be like, oh, it's good that Cal Raleigh's now on first in a tie game in the fifth inning with no one out. So I agree that, like, I mean, a walk that's a good outcome for the offense almost always. So I agree that it was silly, and it actually, maybe it's karma that the Mariners ended up scoring that run.
And like, again, like, I'll repeat what I said at the top of the show. Like, right, like, bad decisions sometimes get rewarded. Good decisions sometimes don't get rewarded. I think the Kevin Cash decision in 2020 with Blake Snell was a good decision, and it didn't get rewarded, and people still talk about it. But this is an example of a bad decision that they paid for. I want to give a little bit more context. So Greg Stoll has a website which basically computes the expected number of runs given a situation. Now, it is player agnostic. You can't like input like, oh, it's Cal Raleigh, or oh, that's getting intentionally walked, or like, oh, it's Julio Rodriguez coming up to bat and Jorge Polanco after that, et cetera, et cetera. But in a player agnostic model, the expected number of runs to be scored with nobody out and a runner on second base is 1.12. Now, obviously, if you add in a runner on first base, obviously the expected number of runs is going to go up because you just added a base runner for free, but it goes up to 1.51. So that's like almost half a run of expectancy added in a playoff game and a tie game in the fifth inning. And the fact that, like, your goal is not to maximize your chances allowing 0, because that's if you're in a tie game in the bottom of the ninth and you have to like not give up a run. Your ultimate goal here is to minimize the number of expected runs, because your probability of winning the game is still non-zero even if you give up 1 run. Right. So it's not a bottom of the ninth situation. So that was the wrong decision. He paid for it. And I think it's good to end this segment on a decision that kind of worked out because it resulted in the win. But we almost have a full sweep here of like bad decisions that like got rewarded with bad outcomes. Blake Snell last night in game 1, and we talked about the Kevin Cash decision in 2020. We've talked about it on previous shows. We think That was a justifiable move. I still think to this day it was the correct thing to do given Blake Snell as a pitcher back then in 2020. It is pretty ironic that we are now in 2025 and there's an argument for Blake Snell getting pulled after 8 innings and the leash should have been even longer. And that's what I'll argue here. Blake Snell, he was pulled in game 1 after 8 innings, 103 pitches in game 1. For a little bit of added context, Blake Snell now in his 15 postseason appearances in his career last night. He now has a 2.58 ERA, 3.12 FIP. Like, we should be talking about him as like one of the great playoff pitchers of our generation. By the way, he's proven it so many times that this man is incredible in the playoffs if he can be healthy for it. He was essentially unhittable the entire night. He had given up 1 base runner. He then picked him off, which is pretty funny. He was essentially unhittable up to that point. The Dodgers got a key insurance run in the top of the 9th. The wait time wasn't even super long. It's not like they scored 4 runs and Blake Snell had to sit around for 40 minutes. They scored 1 run. Great. Good insurance run. Now you have to face the bottom of the Brewers lineup, which, by the way, is, I mean, we've tooted this horn the whole season. The Brewers' bottom of the lineup is pretty bad relative to the other offenses in the playoffs. You're up 2 against the bottom of the Brewers lineup. Your bullpen has struggled. Your newfound closer, Roki Sasaki, does not have years of experience being a closer in this setting. I thought that Blake Snell should have started the 9th inning, and if he got into trouble, you get him out of it. Like, if he's losing command, you get him out of it by getting a reliever. We're never going to find out if Blake Snell really could have truly started that 9th inning, but I would argue that it was a better outcome than what we saw last night, and Roki Sasaki just happened to have really bad command, and then he got pulled, and Blake Trinan came in a bases loaded, or he came in with Christian Yelich up, but then he walked Christian Yelich, and then he was pitching with the bases loaded to Bryce Terang. I'm not here to talk about the whole agenda of like Bryce Terang should have gotten hit by pitch. I'm not here for that. That's some BS talk. I'm here to argue that Blake Snell should have started the 9th inning. Are you in on that?
I mean, it's hard for us to know how much he had left in the tank, but I mean, I get why they pulled him with Sasaki pitching really well. He hadn't thrown any pitches, and Snell was, I think he was over 100. But I mean, if they said we want to let Snell let him start the inning, he's been unhittable. He says he's still feeling good. I would have been able to, like, that would be fine by me as well, because it hadn't even been like what you said was right. Like, he'd been incredible all game. So it's not like this was to face the order a 4th time. Like, this was it would have been to face the bottom of the order a 3rd time. So I would understand kind of either move, really.
Yeah, and I think the Dodgers bullpen struggling this much, and the fact that I've never, like, I'm gonna just put this out there for those who don't know me for like a long period of time. If the only thing you know about me is takes that come through this podcast, I have never been a Dave Roberts fan in terms of him as managing a bullpen, right? Like, I love the man as a person. I love the man for what he did for the Red Sox. I just do not get his bullpen management sometimes. I think he has won a lot despite his bullpen management, and I think he's lost some key games because of bullpen management that people don't talk about enough. I think this would have been a hilarious loss after Blake Snell did what he did, but I'm happy for Blake Snell that he got that win, and it's why I think, like, he's genuinely he's a certified top 10 pitcher in baseball right now, and because I really, really value a pitcher that can do what he has been doing in the playoffs, which is not easy to come by, right? Like, we have so many great pitchers in our game who have not proven that they can go into a playoff atmosphere where every out is so important that you can get pulled after 60 pitches, even without pitching well up to that point. In a day and age where people will play every single matchup, the fact that you can go out there for 8 innings and essentially throw a perfect game, like, that is so hard to find. And he has my respect for that. And it closes the concept that I've been rattling off for the last few minutes, which is players know their bodies better than we know their own. Obviously, we can scrutinize the decisions. We can talk about which decisions are more likely to work in a large sample size than others. But at the end of the day, like, even though I don't love Dave Roberts' bullpen management, he and his coaching staff know more about Blake Snell individually than we do. We know, like, he gets to talk to Blake Snell every day and ask him how his body feels. He gets to talk to Blake Snell between innings and ask, like, do you have gas to throw 100, right? Like, or with Tarek Skubal, for example. So I think people completely ignore the fact whether you're on the pro analytics side, or you're one of the people that go on television and say that because of analytics, my pitcher didn't go, 3 times through the order, and you get really mad about that. Regardless of what side you're on, I feel like people sometimes forget that the individual players are known best by the people in their dugout, and every player should be dealt with differently. There are humans that are dealt with differently. And they're humans that can develop through time as well. Blake Snell in 2020 and Blake Snell right now are very different pitchers because the Dodgers pitching staff has helped him get to a point where this entire season he has visited an order a third time in every single start. Fun fact about Blake Snell, he has not stopped at 2 times through the order in any single start this season. And he has multiple appearances in the regular season this year with at least 104 pitches thrown. He had one with 112 pitches thrown. Postseason, more adrenaline, shorter rest. I get why he didn't go past 103, but I would have liked to see him try. And speaking of top 10 pitchers, I think it's time for our last segment. We're going to draft starting rotations with all the starters available in the league. This is a luxury that we have sitting in chairs in our home and talking on a podcast, is we don't have to build a real rotation with monetary concerns. We're going to draft essentially who we think the best pitchers in baseball are. And this idea, shout out to Sham in our Discord. Sham was asking in our Discord this week about who the best pitchers in baseball are, as someone who doesn't watch every single game as much baseball as we do. So who are our best starting pitchers in our mind? And I think we're going to have different opinions after, as we get outside the top 3. So let's draft. So Max, do you want the first pick since we are doing snake, or do you want me to have the first pick? I feel like I know what you're going to do here. It's only right.
I mean, I feel like we're both going to pick the same player. This was your idea, but also I'd like to pick one of my favorite players, so maybe I get to pick first.
All right, Max, you can have the first pick.
And then you can get your guy. Well, actually, you're probably not going to take your guy, but I'll take Tarek Skubal first.
Yeah, I mean, I think Tarek Skubal is the best pitcher in baseball right now. Again, like I so value pitchers who can go out there, throw 100 pitches, strike out double-digit batters in a playoff game. And the guy I'm taking number 2 overall also did that, and actually his manager allowed him to get to 117 pitches in the playoffs this season, and it resulted in a win for his team. I'm going to take Garrett Crochet. At one point, him and Tarek Skubal were pick'em for the AL Cy Young Award this year. We talked about in prior episodes how the award can go either way. My vote this year, again, Skubal to repeat. I think Crochet is going to win it next year. I hope he wins it at least once in a Red Sox uniform. I don't want it to be a Chris Sale scenario where he is in contention every single year, then goes to another team and wins it. I hope he gets one in a Red Sox uniform. The last Red Sox Cy Young winner being Rick Porcello is kind of disturbing if you think about it. So I'm going to take Skubal second. And then third, I did not mind you going first in this draft because the fact that I can get who I think are the other 2 clear tier 1 pitchers in baseball. I'm going to take Paul Skeens. Now, he hasn't had the playoff track record that Tarek Skubal or even Garrett Crochet has had so far because he hasn't even gotten there. He hasn't had the chance. He's not going to have a chance anytime soon if he stays on the Pirates. For that reason, I hope he gets to a contender. And I know Yankees fans are going to say, let's trade Anthony Volpe for Paul Skeens. I hate to break it to you. It's going to take a little bit more than that to get Paul Skeens. Some stats on Paul Skeens: 1.96 career ERA in his 2 seasons, 2.40 FIP. I mean, on a per pitch basis, this is the best pitcher in baseball, you can argue. But I'll gladly say that number 3 is the right spot to take him, given that Scuba and Crochet have proven a lot more than he has so far.
Yeah, I mean, I think these top 3, like, there's probably a pretty. I feel like this is the top tier, like these 3 guys. And then 4th, it wasn't an easy decision, but I think I'm going to take Logan Webb.
Ooh. A little bit earlier than I thought we'd end up drafting him, but I've been on the Logan Webb is underrated train for a really, really long time. Like one of the rare pitchers that doesn't strike out 12 every game and still produces to almost the same extent as this top tier. So I love the pick. 2.60 FIP, by the way, which is 4th best among qualified starters. So I like the pick, and you have another one after this.
Oh yeah. We've talked a lot about this pitcher. I don't watch as much baseball as people might think, but I mean, he's been incredible in the playoffs. He's won multiple Cy Youngs. He's been really good every year. This year he wasn't healthy for a lot of the season, but I'm gonna take Blake Snell.
Oh, I see. I thought I was gonna get like Blake. Blake is my boy. So for context purposes, if this is the first time listening to the podcast, I was a regular on Blake Snell's gaming streams way back in the day. I almost played MLB The Show with him against him in a tournament. Schedules didn't match, but this has been my boy for a long time. For a completely separate reasons, just because I actually have believed in the man for a long, long time. I bet him to win Cy Young the year he won Cy Young at plus 5,000 odds before the season started. It's by far my favorite futures bet that I've ever made. I think I've made futures bets that were longer odds, but personally, that was my favorite futures bet that I've ever hit. So I love Blake, and I thought I was going to get him later in the draft. So I think that's a steal given what he's done in the playoffs. So now that I have a pick, I think I'm going to have to go with someone. We've drafted the 4 of the top 5 pitchers in fielding independent pitching this year. The one that we haven't drafted, I feel like I have to take him. Christopher Sanchez almost beat the Dodgers single-handedly, which is weird to say for a starting pitcher, but he almost beat the Dodgers in that game, in that elimination game where Orion Kirkring ended up throwing the ball away. But he won that game for against the Dodgers, and a lot of calls weren't even going his way. But this is another guy who doesn't have these strikeout numbers that Crochet, Skubal, and Skeens does, but he's right beneath that tier. 2.55 ERA, and he was also incredible last year, but also a 2.77 expected FIP, which was the 3rd best in baseball. Number 1 being Crochet, number 2 being Skubal. So I'll gladly take Christopher Sanchez there. And then now it's the time where it gets really foggy, I think. Like, you can argue for so many guys here. I feel like I have to stick with the brand, and because you took Blake Snell, I have to not let you get his teammate. Yoshinobu Yamamoto is someone that maybe I'm overcorrecting for how good he was this year, but I'm taking him at this spot because what he did this season was something that I didn't expect. I was fading him in fantasy baseball this year, and it was maybe my worst take of fantasy baseball this year. And I thought that it was his arm was going to get so overmanaged that they weren't going to let him go deep into games. I thought he hadn't proven enough last year in terms of the whiff on each of his pitches. But number 6 in all of baseball in expected FIP, right after the Crochet, Skubal, Sanchez, Webb, and Skeens. So this is a certified ace. It's kind of wild to think that you can argue that Blake Snell is a better pitcher than him, but the Dodgers have both. But I'll take Yamamoto, which will round out the top 6 in FIP from this year.
Okay, this next pick, you're probably not going to like because he hasn't really performed well in the playoffs at all. But again, it's kind of a small sample, and he's another guy that succeeds. He's not a big strikeout pitcher, but gets a ton of ground balls, and he's very difficult to homer off of. He's threw a lot of innings this year. I think he's stayed healthy throughout a lot of his career. So I'm taking Max Fried.
Yeah, it's the right pick. I was surprised that honestly, like you can argue that Fried has done more this season than Blake Snell has in terms of volume because he had such a good regular season and Blake Snell had injuries and was getting managed. So I'm actually surprised that Fried went after Blake Snell in the draft. But I also agree with it. I think I would rather have Blake Snell than Max Fried, given the resume of the playoffs. So I'm surprised he fell, but I also think it's correct and it's the right pick there.
Do I have to pick again? I'm
Yeah,
so bad
it's
with
Nick,
these.
bro.
I think I'm gonna take another one of your guys, and like this is a pitcher that honestly maybe we'll be talking about in the top 5 or maybe even higher than that if he can stay healthy. Like the stuff's incredible, and his performance was great, but he had a groin injury. I'm gonna take Hunter Green.
This so what's crazy about this is when you said it's one of my guys, I was like, this could go one of two ways. When you said it was Hunter, I was like, this can go one of two ways. I thought you were going to take Hunter Brown for the memes. I think like you can make an argument that Hunter Brown, Hunter Green are interchangeable. I'm going to take Hunter Brown to round out this draft at number 10. Hunter Green is someone, by the way, he's up for trade, and the Red Sox should absolutely be all over that if they, at least making calls to figure that out. I'm gonna take Hunter Brown to round out this top 10. He was number 9 in FIP, higher than a lot of people who could be picked at this spot, but also Hunter Brown, someone like I've been a fan of since like as a prospect. I was a believer in him when he gave up, was it like 15 hits or something, including like 8 in a row against the Royals in a day game start. At his ultimate low in life, I was a supporter of Hunter Brown. He has great stuff and a 3.14 FIP this season. Had a couple of really bad starts this season and still put up those numbers. I think he can absolutely win a Cy Young in the near future, and he's not even at his age apex yet. I honestly thought like Hunter Green may go undrafted, and I would have to mention him as like Hunter Green is a guy that could win a Cy Young next year, and he wasn't even drafted. But I'm glad you took care of that for me. And I think we had a pretty good overall draft. Notably, some names that we didn't draft, who I think you can make an argument for: Kevin Gausman, Brian Wu, who is the Mariners are here without having Brian Wu even throw a pitch yet, which is awesome to see. I think Jesus Luzardo is someone that was obviously never going to get drafted in this draft because his results were not great this year. But I think he's going to be in this conversation next year. Just someone I want to call out. Like I called that he was going to be good in the playoffs. In his start, he was good. And he has a 2.90 FIP, which, by the way, this in the regular season was better than Yamamoto, better than Fried, better than Brown. But yeah, we got to see a little bit more of him, getting those strikeouts and getting out of those jams and not letting the unlucky events get to him. So I think he's in that fringe right now, but I think he's going to be in that list. Framber Valdez, you can argue, is the better Astro of the two pitchers. You can argue that. I had to take Hunter Brown. That's my boy. But that's another honorable mention I just wanted to put out there. Peter says Hunter Green needs to learn how to throw more than 2 pitches. I wouldn't want the Red Sox to break the bank on him. I mean, he was starting to throw a splitter this year. He started mixing it in at the beginning of the year, and it was drawing whiffs, but then he started losing command. I mean, my argument against that statement is, can you imagine if he finally gets a third pitch coached by Andrew Bailey on the Red Sox, who has made a career out of Lucas Giolito, by the way? Can you imagine if Hunter Green finally gets a third serviceable pitch or third elite whiff pitch? If he's doing this with 2 pitches, can you imagine what he would do with a third good pitch? That's my argument. My argument is if you put him on the Red Sox, he's going to be in contention for the Cy Young. So we're going to have this draft edited up and posted by our newly engaged, by the way, editor Andy. Shout out to Andy. So we're going to have this up, and let me know or let us know how you feel about this. And I'm sure there's going to be some Yankees fans mad that Max Fried got drafted 8th, or some other fans that you forgot this guy. No, we didn't forget. We had 10 spots, but I thought that was fun. Max, we will be here next week as well. I know your Tigers are eliminated. Your Yankees are eliminated. My Red Sox are eliminated, but hopefully 7 days from now on October 21, we'll be either previewing the World Series. We're talking about at least the Mariners finishing the job off and headed to the World Series for the first time. There was a lot on the agenda for today, and it's possible there might be more. I'm gonna let our viewers and you have the rest of the day to yourselves. I'm gonna stay on stream to talk some betting. If you want to be part of these streams, be part of the podcast, and be part of, whenever I stream me talking betting and stuff. And if you want to be part of the NBA betting endeavors, join us on the streams for free, twitch.tv/Jahan, or hit subscribe on the YouTube Bowl Institute. And if you want to get all our content, betting, everything, for less than $1 per day, join the Discord. But for now, we'll see you on October 21, which is perhaps one of our final episodes of the season for the Deep Drive.